What's going on, good? Oh my God, hold up. Gary Gensler SEC meme in the comments. That's absolutely amazing. Hold on, let me look at your profile real quick. Gary Gensler on a chair. That's absolutely glorious. I love it. We'll give it a couple minutes, guys. I got waiting for JP to get in here. I tried to start a minute or two early, give people time to accumulate, and waiting for one of my co-hosts. Hope everybody's doing well. Appreciate the support from the THORChain guys. Man, if I get some time at the end of the interview, I need to get this Gary Gensler SEC meme up here. This dude's amazing. What's up, Adam? Good to see you again, my friend. Oh, nope, he disappeared. Hey, Coyote, what's going on, brother?
Hey, good afternoon.
Waiting for JP. I may shoot him a message here in just a minute. We're gonna wait for some guys to join in, and I may shoot him a message. I tried to boot it up. I always try to boot up at like 2 or 3 minutes early. Try to get
That's
let
smart.
people join in. You always get like that awkward. You always get like that awkward time where you just kind of waiting for spaces to start. People pop in, pop out. So
Oh yeah. And it's kind of nice to catch up with people. You say hello, you say what's up, and then everyone's in the space. You're ready to go.
yeah, for sure. What's up, Drew? Santa, I don't know where she went MIA. I guess she's sleeping right now. I know she sleeps during the day. So let's shoot JP a message here in a minute. And I'm gonna invite there's Cal, there's another guy that was part of the he's part of the team as well. You're able to 1 second. I always have to hate sending out like a whole bunch of messages.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to the team, learn a little bit more about THORChain. Glad I still hold on my rune.
Yeah, Rune, I need to.
How much do I have?
Let's see. Yeah, I need to increase my bag of Rune. I regret, man. This was like, shoot, it was down to like 70 or 90 cents. Why is everybody coming out here right now? Oh God. I'd rather increase my bags. Around the 70 to 90 cent range. Whenever it was at the bottom of the bear market, because it was such a good project. Hey JP, let me send you a co-host request. Okay, I think we got everybody.
Awesome. Good morning, all.
What's going on, man?
I'm in Wanaka, New Zealand. 7:30 a.m. in the morning, but it's good.
Yeah, dude. Hey, before we get started, I really appreciate you. That's why I doubled and triple checked, because I've got a lot of friends from like Australia and New Zealand area, and it's always literally the worst times to try to schedule things. Because you're like 16, 17 hours ahead. So man, we really appreciate you taking the time. out of your day to come and join us. So I think it's going to be an awesome space. I should have sent you a co-host invite instead of speaker. Did you bring him up as speaker, Coyote?
I did, but let's see. It's not. I don't. Is it too late to make him co-host?
No, you have to drop back down. It's fine. We'll roll. We'll roll with it, guys. I'm going to go ahead and roll. JP, thanks for coming. Okay, so we start off. Welcome to EVM, guys. This is the Evan Virtual Machine. The idea is to unplug from the lies of reality and plug into another channel, learn things from new people. And I really appreciate JP from the THORChain team coming today. Really, I like what they're doing. THORChain has been a project that's been on my radar for a long time. I do hold bags. I'm not paid to do the interview. Nothing's been talked about after the scenes. I always get that out of the way. I just want to. I think they're doing something very unique and very interesting in the space, and I want to talk to them because uh, they've got something. They've got something that I think that other chains need to be doing. And so I want to start with this, JP. I want to just kind of give it to you. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do on the team, and tell us kind of the main mission statement of THORChain in general in the crypto space?
Sure. So my background is I was in the Air Force for 12 years, studying aeronautical engineering. I flew fighters and bombers. And then I joined a tech meetup in 2013 and I discovered Bitcoin. And I thought, hey, this is going to change the world. So I started telling everyone about it, started getting involved, reading the white paper on the forums. I've had an NTGOX account, BTC account. And I thought, hey, this is going to be great. I got lost some Bitcoin on MTGOX. I lost some Bitcoin that was seized by the FBI on BTC because the guy who hacked Mt. Gox was laundering Bitcoin through BTC, which is a Russian exchange. So I woke up one morning and the FBI had pinched on my Bitcoin. Long story short, I thought, hey, this is a pretty volatile, crazy industry. You couldn't even download any wallets on the mobile wallets from Apple because they had banned all the Bitcoin apps. So I thought, hey, this industry is starting off from scratch and it's battling everything. So I thought, hey, I'm going to get in and start getting involved. So a couple of years later, Bitcoin had crashed from like 1,200 down to like $200. Everyone thought it was dead, but it started pumping up again. And I thought, now's the time. So through all the rest I sold my house, sold my car. Literally, I sold everything I had and threw it all into crypto. Resigned from the Air Force after a long battle with them to get out, and moved to Melbourne. I started joining the blockchain space, doing hackathons, Ethereum hackathons. Started learning about Ethereum and whatnot. And I thought, I'm just going to build something. I don't know what it is, but I'm just going to build something. So I had my little co-working space, paying $300 a month, catching a train to work every day. And I started building out. After I won the hackathon, the whole people approached me and said, hey, I want you to be the lead dev of my idea and blah, blah, blah. So I had a million people kind of hit me up and say, build this, because it was going through the RCO phase. But I was a bit wary at the time. I participated in some big ICOs like Bancor and Monaco, which is MCO, which is now Crypto.com, AirSwap, Polkadot. But about the same time, I thought, hey, maybe an idea I could do is build like a marketplace of let people pay each other for services. So I built my first idea, which was a project called Kenya, but it was just the wrong time, wrong place, and it just never got anywhere because, as I learned out, nobody likes to pay for anything in crypto. All they want to do is speculate and swap and trade. Anyway, towards the end of the year, when 2017 pump, and then I realized it was all about liquidity. We had AirSwap come out. The AirSwap launch of the project was really disappointing. Bancor's launch was really disappointing. The swap project, because I was trying to list Kenya on all these kind of decentralized swapping platforms, and they all just sucked. So getting into 2018, I thought, hey, the biggest thing I can do is do swaps, cross-chain swaps, and everyone was talking about atomic swaps back then, but atomic swaps are just terrible UX. You have to find a partner, a peer. You have to sign a transaction, then you send it to them, then they got to sign it, send it back to you, then you got to sign it again, send it back to them. Literally, there's like 8 different back and forths between your peer. So atomic swaps are just never going to work. And so I started building basically the idea that you could swap through a pool. and we ran a hackathon with Binance because Binance was about to launch the Binance chain, which was like a DEX. And I was like, hey, Binance launching a DEX, this must be cool. Got early access to the white paper, and it was just a limit order book. I'm like, this is sucks. And all they'd done is taken Cosmos SDK and dialed it up to the max. They'd done like 300 millisecond block times to try and make a really super fast DEX. But it was just a centralized limit order book. And that was the launch in like June 2000, like May 2018. And I'm like, man, the whole industry just has no idea what they're doing. So I went all in on it. I'm like, we need pools. We need a chain that is not trying to dial up to the max to do 300 millisecond block times, because that's just going to have huge chain bloat. And by the way, Binance is about to shut down that particular chain because it was never going to work in the first place. And nobody actually uses a centralized limit order book. So my thesis was correct. It was going to be liquidity pools, and it was going to be on chain, and it was going to be a sensible block time. But at the time, I thought it was going to be like wrap tokens with multi-sigs and whatnot. So the initial version of THORChain was going to have wrap tokens connected with Ethereum, Bitcoin, Litecoin. But it's still, the unanswered question to me was wrap tokens and their user experience there and the security model around holding it. And kind of the first version of THORChain was a bit of a misdirection because it was in the wrap token direction. It was using multi-sig. And then peeling back the layers of the onion in 2018 and learning about how obtuse Bitcoin multisig was, how Ethereum multisig just sucks, and how most other chains don't even have multisigs, or they all just suck. So in 2018, we almost had to shelve the project. I raised some money, had a dev team, but it was just the wrong direction. So we had the liquidity pools, we had the math behind it, we had the general direction. Anyway, so pretty bleak. I went as a last ditch effort to DevCon 4 in Czech Republic and I met that's when I met Vitalik, and I met Hayden Adams, and he jumped up on stage. I met Eric Voorhees, and I was telling him about this crazy idea I had about liquidity pools and swaps and stuff, and I was like, I don't understand what you're talking about. And then Hayden Adams jumps up and presents Uniswap. And I'm like, that's what I'm talking about. And I met the guy, and I was like, dude, this is going to change the world. It's exactly the right direction. It's liquidity pools, it's permissionless, blah, blah, blah. And so reinvalidated from that project, because I thought, hey, Hayden's going to launch Uniswap. It's just going to do EVM swaps. Someone needs to go back and do it for Bitcoin and Litecoin and Ethereum. And so reinvigorated with a bit of energy, went back to the drawing boards, and that's when I found TSS. GG18 in particular. So GG18 was the threshold signature protocol to enable, it just solved all the multi-sig problems. And so getting into early 2018, got back in the Binance Chain community, and that's when I met Chad, and I pitched in this idea, hey, let's just take this THORChain liquidity pool idea plus the threshold signatures and finish building this project I'd started building a year ago. Which was shelved, and he was like, I'm in, brother, and we started building it, and that's it. That's the origin story. And so armed with that reinvigoration, a bit of energy, raised a bit more money, got back into the arena, hired a whole bunch of critical devs, and I'm telling you, if I hadn't hired maybe like these 3 developers, THORChain would not have existed. And they were so critical to solving those hardcore problems. They're still around. I'm not going to tell who they are, but there was like 5 people that got THORChain alive and running. And if they weren't there at the right time, it would have never been shipped. It was just so many difficult problems had to be solved from June 2019 to the first testnet. It was every day we were battling everything, solving hardcore problems. And somehow pulled it off. And testnet got out on single chain and single chain chaosnet, then multi chain chaosnet, and yada yada yada. So that's how it worked. At the point at which I went and became leaner. So originally I was kind of semi-doxed in 2018 when I first started. When I re-kicked the project after Uniswap, I thought, there's no way I'm going to do this because it's too critical that the protocol needs to be decentralized. I'm not going to build this chain around centralized figurehead. So most of the devs were kind of like semi-anon, with the exception of Chad, and he maintained his Twitter account. I decided in 2018 to just go, just become this dev in the Discord. I was like, the only way I'm going to ship this is if we're just hardcore engineering, just hardcore problem solvers, and we just focus on the problem and not, trying to pump up our Twitter accounts. So I was behind the THORChain Twitter account from 2018 onwards, but yeah, I was just the dev in the Discord as Lena. And I did that just because I wanted to push myself, focus on just solving those hardcore problems. Because it was like THORChain almost failed like 3 or 4 times. And I thought the only way I'm going to push this out if we just focus, focus, focus. And I also wanted to create a bit of a misdirection that, I was never involved, but I kind of was. But I was just the dev in the Discord. Anyway, so that I also did it for the memes. But memes are necessary. Like the whole THORChain runs on memes. Memes are so critical. I don't think really people get that. If you get that, then pat yourself on the back. Memes make the world go around. Memes, if you just control the memes, you control everything. So memes are just critical. And so THORChain, and that's actually why THORChain is so big on the memes, and why even the brand is just a meme. Like it's the oldest meme in the world. Like it's based on the Book of Genesis. Norse mythology. I'm not sure if many people realize that. Norse mythology is, I don't know if it predates Book of Genesis or Book of Genesis predates Norse mythology, but they have got huge parallels. Just go read both. I think Norse mythology actually predates the Book of Genesis, to be honest. As in, like the guys who wrote the Book of Genesis kind of were told about Norse mythology from like thousands of years ago, and they kind of formed their opinion of what the genesis of the world was. It's really powerful stuff. It's like the oldest memes that we carry on to get today could be the Norse mythology, and that's instantly what THORChain is based on. So that's pretty cool. Anyway, so getting back to my role, early developer. So I built the first versions of like AsgardX, CrossChain.js, BepSwap, which became THORSwap. Wrote some parts of THORChain code, the Bifrost code, helped Heimdall solve all the hardcore problems with like the wrapping, the wrapping of the Ethereum, Bitcoin, Litecoin. Because every chain we connected to, we just got faced with new problems, and we just had to just hardcore solve our way through them. So yeah, the architect, dev in the Discord, the guy, the Twitter account, the chief meme lord. That's been my role for the last 6 years. And kind of now these days, I'm more like the chief meme lord and more standing back, watching the direction, and helping out with the general vision over the next 5 years to get it. But these days, my role, I can only campaign. So like 3 years ago, I could like poke directly at devs and poke directly at where money got spent, blah, blah, blah. But these days, I've given up control of all that, like handed over most. I mean, right now I'm not even on the THORChain Twitter account, as an example. I don't run the GitHub, the GitLab. I don't run the Treasury. The Treasury day-to-day direct decisions. So I've basically handed over everything. So it's in a really safe space. And my job these days is I can only campaign. I can only campaign with memes. So if I'd like to see the project go in a certain direction, like Rune Pool or Perps or whatever, I can't just force it anymore. I've got to get out there. I've got to campaign. I've got to talk to people and convince them why this is the right direction. Meet them in person, like I did in New York, in Texas, and San Fran, and Sydney, blah, blah, blah. Meet them in person, campaign them, and say, hey, this is why we need to go in this direction. And there, I can't control. I can only campaign. And that's going to be my position for the next 5 years. Is just to push, control, campaign, educate, and help get this protocol in a direction, because like protocols, decentralized protocols, truly decentralized protocols have a bit of a meandering leadership problem, which I recognize. They just meander, and everyone competes to be the signal and the noise, but there's no kind of like push in a certain direction, which is fine. I mean, let's look at Bitcoin. Bitcoin doesn't want to change. It just want to make sure it doesn't stay the same. So the Bitcoin community is just so funny. I mean, they just constantly fight each other over the direction, even like the most trivial things. With the latest debacle, whether it's like BRC20s or runes, and and like no one can agree on any direction, which is kind of cool because it means any change to Bitcoin is just going to be so slow and glacial, and that's exactly what you want from an asset that protects your purchasing power across time and space. So that's fine. Ethereum is a bit more directional. You do have the ETH Foundation and our old friend Vitalik, who's kind of also in a position where he can only really campaign, but he does write the code and he does talk to the implementation teams. There's like 6 different client implementation teams, but there's definitely a bit of a good direction that Ethereum's taking. Although over the last 6 years, it has kind of meandered as well, as the team has discovered how to solve the hardcore problems of scaling and computational bandwidth on different layers. But yeah, so that hopefully that's an answer to your question of my background, how I was involved in the project, and what I'm doing now. So I'll hand back over to the next question.
That was an amazing intro. It gave me a lot to work with. A couple of comments. One is, you see throughout history, you see people will come out with good products but have terrible marketing, or sometimes they have godlike marketing but the product's actually terrible and it lasts for a little while, but then the reviews catch up with the bad product. So I think your comment about like memes and then good tech is, you have to do, like, memes are marketing and you have to do it correctly. Like, you can have the best tech in the world, but if you have terrible marketing, who's going to know about it? Or it's just going to be really slow. So, that kind of came to my mind. It's good to have both, and memes do push the direction of the culture. I think that that's important. We're in crypto. Yes, the tech is great, but the average layman doesn't understand how the tech works, right? That's why, like, your developers, your three guys, they're the salt of the earth guys, right? They're the remnant. They're the guys that are kind of like the steel structure that holds everything up. And so, the memes and the marketing is what pulls people in to encourage them to use the protocol. My next question is, I want to lead into this, and maybe it's a little bit more on the technical side. So with events like FTX, right? I think that there's a general, at least among crypto OGs or people who have been through at least one or two cycles, there's a mistrust of crypto exchanges, and rightfully so. There's a couple of reasons. One is it's difficult to audit a crypto exchange. I mean, they can post proof of reserves, but it's like, what do they do with your money? Two is you don't custody the asset, which ties into one. And number three is the risk from regulators. If we look at, I call him Clown Man. If we look at Clown Man Gensler, you have regulators that are, especially in the United States where I'm posted, if you can't tell by my wonderful Southern accent, um, we have an issue with regulation, and it's like they're almost trying to choke the industry out completely. And so, what I've done is I've started to explore more decentralized on-chain options, and THORChain is doing something that I haven't seen before. They're different than a simple swap or a Trocador or an atomic swap, but they also allow you to move native assets without doing like the order book model that exchanges have. And so, I kind of want to toss this to you, and it's kind of like just kind of a ethereal question. Is like, how does THORChain stand out? How does THORChain stand out differently in the market when it comes to swapping? What makes y'all different than a centralized exchange, and what makes y'all different than most of the other decentralized exchanges? What role are you trying to fill in the market? Is kind of the question.
So THORChain is the only true layer one DEX. If you're looking for DEXs, it's just THORChain. That's across different chains. I don't believe in a single chain thesis. So back in 2018, when Hayden was pitching Uniswap and launched, and he was very clearly in the direction of Ethereum, I thought, hey, that it's going to perform the long tail swapping protocol, as in you swap your ERC20 tokens. But I do not believe that Ethereum will be the center of the universe. So then I didn't subscribe to the belief that you needed a ETH or EVM only swapping solution. What's needed, and I'll tell you what, the future of chains will be diverse. We don't yet know whether a modular solution like Ethereum or a monolithic solution like a Solana or something that's new, like that's sharded, like Telegram Open Network, which is integrated in Telegram, and I think everyone's sleeping on. By the way, go get yourself some TON because that's going to do nicely this cycle. Or we don't yet know if Cosmos. So back in 2020, when Terra Luna was pumping like to all-time highs, that was very unfortunate because Terra's state machine stack with WASM was extremely sleek. It could have been if it had survived and been large and we had a lot more forks of it, it could have been a really compelling direction where we had these kind of like state machines. I mean, THORChain's built on a state machine, Byzantine fault tolerant state machine, and they had like a WASM solution, and they were rivaling what Ethereum was punching out. But then the whole chain, the leader of the chain, imploded. The other unfortunate thing about Cosmos is the other leading Cosmos chain, Atom Hub, doesn't really do anything, and that original team there kind of all in bits and had a falling out with a dev team, and then the original guy Jay kind of went a bit loopy. But anyway, it's like the whole Cosmos chain has been a little bit direction's been a little bit disappointing, but it's huge potential. I'm just waiting for another. I mean, luckily we got Osmosis and Kujira who are trying to push that back up again. So I like to support those guys because I actually believe in the state machine direction over, say, modular and monolithic or Telegram's extremely convoluted, complex machine. Anyway, so right there you go. You've got like 5 different chains and also Bitcoin, and no one can tell me right now which is the winner. I mean, even the L2s, apart from L2s being very concerningly centralized, there's no clear L2 winner. So when people like founders ask me which L2 should I deploy my token on, I'm like, do not deploy your token on L2. That's silly. Deploy it on the L1 and just wait, because the L2 game is thick, it's fast, they're all centralized, it's just a giant marketing game. I mean, Coinbase are making stupid amounts of sequencer fees on base these days. Binance Smart Chain is also a huge revenue profit raiser for Binance. They kind of don't want to decentralize it because they would lose control of the kind of fee in that they kind of they used to. So they play a very they play a tightrope where it's got to look decentralized, but they can't be decentralized too much because they're all run by centralized companies. Anyway, so we don't yet know. So as a result, there's going to be heaps of different chains. So you need a chain agnostic swapping solution right there and then. So just run you back. There will be lots of chains. Definitely need a chain agnostic swapping solution. So which protocol solves that? Well, it's just THORChain and its forks and its clones and whatnot. So like the whole THORChain ecosystem, which includes Maya protocol, Chainflip, and Sarai, which is yet to be launched. So the way that and it's the correct way to think about it, that these protocols, you send in one asset on one chain and it will spit out another asset on another chain. That's it. And so you need cross-chain swaps, and THORChain is currently the leader of that. But more than that, you can't just have cross-chain swaps, because swaps need liquidity. So you need to solve cross-chain liquidity, and cross-chain liquidity is an extremely difficult problem to solve. I'm just talking about like providing liquidity into liquidity pools, because the liquidity is one, it doesn't even live in this, like the liquidity is split between the chains. So you have like Rune on the THORChain pool trying to be synced up and matched with Bitcoin on the Bitcoin chain. Does it make sense? So it's like the user experience to solve that problem is really complex, because you've got the different chains, different networks, different block times, different wallets, blah blah blah. So it's just really difficult to solve, and so cross-chain liquidity just needs more solving of that particular problem. I believe the solution is to split the risk, split the user experience. So you have like basically a cross-chain savings product, well, we call it savers, but under the hood, you're just single-sided adding Bitcoin to one side, and then on the other side, you're adding single-sided Rune or the dual LP token, and kind of you split the user experience about it. So if you deposit Bitcoin, then you get your Bitcoin principal plus a small yield back. If you deposit Rune, it gets spread across all the pools, and you receive like an aggregate yield back. So that's I believe is strongly, I believe that very strongly, by the way, that is the correct direction to take liquidity. So swaps are necessary, cross-chain swaps are necessary. You need liquidity to service those swaps. So you need a good liquidity product, which include like single-sided L1 and single-sided Rune as an example. And then, but more than that, you need to also offer services and features that rival centralized exchanges. So you can't have users going, oh, cross-chain swaps are cool, but you can't do lending. That sucks. I'm just going to go back to BlockFi 2.0 and give them my Bitcoin all again and get rugged in 4 years. So you can't have that again. So cross-chain protocols need to offer lending to just answer the question that you can do lending and you don't need to use BlockFi 2.0. And the fourth thing is the biggest moneymaker for exchanges is perps. That's where they 10x the volume, 10x the fees. They attract a huge group of these very cost insensitive, time insensitive users that just want to speculate on the daily movement of these assets. And that's perfectly fine. You can go ahead and speculate. It's pretty fun if you get it right, and it's painful when you get it wrong. But why not? If you want people want to speculate on the daily movement of L1 assets, they can go right ahead. But you can't just do that on centralized perp platforms. I mean, BitMEX back in the day, like BitMEX was the founder of the Perpetuals offering, the Perpetuals product. They invented it, and they originally wanted it to be Bitcoin only, no KYC. So you would deposit in Bitcoin, trade, and then withdraw in Bitcoin, and they did that for a few years. But then they all got hauled into New York and got given jail sentences. Some of them suspended because they were accused of letting anyone trade without any KYC, including people from New York. Yeah, which I don't agree with. But as a result, BitMEX had to swap out the leadership team, and Arthur Hayes and Sam had to leave, and they had to like add huge amounts of KYC and all that nonsense. So go trade on BitMEX these days, and it sucks. It's a terrible trading experience because of those reasons. Binance also wanted to not do KYC because everyone hates KYC because KYC is just creating a giant honeypot of user information that ultimately ends up getting hacked, stolen, or insiders get access to, and it doesn't even work. KYC does not work. You can jump on the dark web right now and buy identity information and go create a Binance account. You can literally just buy a KYC Binance account on the dark web right now. It just doesn't work, right? You're not actually by trying to KYC everyone to stop a little bit of rogue users. You're just creating a huge burden and a huge liability on everyone else, including myself, who are just honest, hardworking users who don't actually do anything in terms of bad stuff, quote unquote. So anyway, so that's KYC. KYC should not be utilized at all. Money should just be free flowing. So get back into the point. THORChain is the only protocol and its forks who can convincingly offer these kind of platforms because they exist beyond they just exist like Bitcoin does. Bitcoin doesn't KYC you when you want to transfer one transaction to another address. Ethereum doesn't KYC you when you send one ETH to from one address to another. And the argument is, well, regulators when they get their hands on the node community and enforce that, that will be a test of decentralization for sure. So the argument is, if no one can stop you making transaction of Bitcoin or Ethereum, which exists today, and regulators are happy with that, then nobody should stop you from making a transaction on Bitcoin, which causes another transaction to be made on Ethereum through a decentralized middleman protocol like THORChain. See that parallel there? So that's THORChain, and that's why THORChain can exist without any KYC in a world of decentralized protocols. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yes, it does. I greatly appreciate the in-depth discussion on that. JP, I'm going to ask you, and this is near and dear to my heart, so it may possibly be a little bit of a loaded question, given what jurisdiction you live in. When you were mentioning KYC, I see native assets, that you can swap. I use Thor Swap because I believe it's the biggest DEX on THORChain, for like native asset swaps and borrowing and lending and things of that nature. So I want to put my money where my mouth is and try out the protocol before I've reached out to you guys. Um, here's two things. Security and privacy are big discussions that I think need to be had more in the crypto space. I think some people focus too much on memes, or focus too much on arguing with each other and aren't focusing on some of the good fundamentals that kind of separate us from the traditional financial system and what we need to get away from. So my question is can you talk a little bit about THORChain's security, when it comes to swaps or locking up collateral to borrow against? And this is just a personal question for me. Is there any possibility that there will be Monero integration at some point on the privacy side?
So the first question is, what does THORChain do for security? So back in 2020, when we launched the protocol, we called it single chain chaosnet. And the branding was simple. It was like, we don't yet know the problems we're going to solve. We don't even know if this thing's going to work. Just jump in. The emission is going to be high, so the reward's going to be high, but expect chaos. Single chain chaosnet didn't have that much chaos actually, but then when we launched multi-chain chaosnet 6 months later, we ran the same message. It's like we don't yet know. We definitely don't yet know if it's going to work because we rolled it out for Bitcoin, Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash, and Ethereum, and we said, hey, just expect chaos. Just put a little bit of money in. Expect chaos. Emissions are high to reward you if you do want to participate. Let's see, because we knew we had to just get out there, get in the arena, and just see the problems we're about to solve. And 3 months later, but that was so 3 months later, the one part of the system, on a repeat, just one little part called the router, got hit by 3 attacks very quickly in 3 weeks. Whereas the Bitcoin stuff, the Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash, the THORChain protocol itself, all fine. But it's just the Ethereum router. And by the way, we only had the Ethereum router because we wanted to offer swaps to ERC20 tokens. You don't need a router if you don't need to do ERC20 swaps. So the protocol may have not ever had those issues if we didn't offer ERC20 swaps. And what had happened is this enterprising attacker, probably from Canada, I think I know who it is. He sent these upstream. He sent an upstream attack from a contract which faked a deposit into THORChain. So THORChain was like, thanks for sending us money. Here's your swap, but he kind of manipulated the deposit logs to make it look like THORChain had received the deposit, and then so he managed to trick the system there. And then the next attack was a downstream contract attack where he sent a swap through the router to a contract, which then tricked the machine, the THORChain, into saying that it didn't get sent, so THORChain just sent it again. Anyway, this attacker just tricked THORChain into thinking that deposits and events had happened when they actually happened, and just on the router. So after those incidents, we the whole node community and the dev team, we had to take the whole protocol down and rebuild all the security around it. That's why there's an outbound throttle. That's why there's upstream, downstream whitelists around the router. Still to this day, there's node pause button. We split up a separate security team to review PRs. So yeah, we split up layers upon security. We even split up a bounty program. That bounty program has been one of the biggest value adds to THORChain's security posture. We've paid out 3 or 4 major bounties, but it just offers these guys it offers these white hat hackers a viable way to just read hours upon hours of thousands upon thousands of lines of THORChain's code and look for issues, because we always pay out. And we have surfaced a number of P1 bugs from these white hat hackers looking through THORChain's code. Second thing is, if you are looking to make money and you found an exploit, you might as well just tell us about it, because if you can prove to us you can get the money out of the system, the protocol, then you'll get the bounty. But if you try and attempt it on THORChain, because THORChain has got so many layers of security, node pause, blah, 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 then you're most likely going to get your attack funds seized up. So it's not going to work. So that's THORChain security. Since 2021, there hasn't been really major fund loss. There was through attacks, if I can say that. So there has certainly been fund loss events through bugs and just issues, and we're slowly been grinding away through those. It's just you just don't know what you don't know, and the amount of just edge cases that you face in a cross-chain world is just staggering. So THORChain state machine code to these days is like where Linux is these days. It's like you could not have specified it 4 years ago. You could not literally have got down in a room for a month on end and written out every single specification needed to solve where THORChain is state. You literally could not. I mean, you probably could take THORChain's code, go through every single line of code and specify it, as in the code needs to do this, and then if it sees this, it needs to do this. Write it out on a piece of paper. You could not do that back 6 years ago. You may be able to do it today just by looking at what we've done with THORChain. But the way the THORChain works is just the code itself. It's like every line of code in there is in there for a reason. And if you start deleting stuff, things will break. That's how crazy it is. That's why there's no real white paper. It's just literally go look at THORChain's code. That's how our latest understanding of how to solve this problem is actually percolates out into. Anyway, so that's THORChain security posture. It's pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it, because we've demonstrated time and time again we can respond very quickly to adversarial adversity or events. And the longer the THORChain exists without major fund loss events, the longer it will exist without major fund loss. So that's pretty reassuring. The second thing is the will THORChain support Monero? So back in 2021, I started working with my team on building Monero swaps through Monero. Nobody has written, there's no like TSS for Monero, right? So yet, Sarai has implemented, Kayaba from Sarai has implemented a TSS for Monero, which is brand new. It hasn't been audited. So, but we're watching this space very closely. About 3 years ago, there was just Monero multisig using the wallet, and that multisig solution was just pretty bad, and it was like security vulnerabilities with it. So, which is okay in a like if you're just creating a Monero multisig at home in your basement, but it's certainly not okay when you're trying to put like $1 million Monero in an open source protocol with open source code path, blah blah blah, because you're just going to get attacked straight away. So we decided we could not launch it because Monero multisig was just sucked and it was insecure. So we've been working with Sarai and helping push and support, and that's why you see the THORChain Twitter like promote Sarai quite a bit, even though yet to launch. But the lead dev behind Sarai has implemented a TSS for Monero, and which is exciting because finally you can have a cross-chain swapping solution for Monero. And the launch solution is going to be the way that they launch is going to be similar to the way that Maya protocol launch, where you just like throw some liquidity in. You get matched to the Sarai token, and then 6-12 months later, boom, you've got a brand new network. And so Sarai will be the Monero swapping solution because it will have a decentralized launch. Nobody know who the nodes are, and it will have a chance to be small. It'll be small enough that it's not going to get shut down, but it has huge potential, so it's going to slowly grow. And that is the correct way to add Monero to THORChain, in the sense that we can just route via Sarai. So you can swap from Bitcoin through THORChain, which will then send a transaction via ETH or Bitcoin into Sarai, which will then swap into Monero. So you will have a single swap via THORSwap into Monero inside the next year for sure. And Sarai will do this, and it means all the attention and the cancellation from the three-letter agencies are going to be directed to Sarai, but it will be proper decentralized, and it will be it'll be a brand new protocol, a brand new TSS solution. Be small enough it won't attract all the bad eyes early, so we can like work out the bugs. So, in answer to your question, yes, Monero is coming to THORChain, but no, not in the way you might expect.
That's still, it does my heart good to know that there's protocols out there actually working on blockchain privacy, because it's something that I think it needs to be discussed more, especially as we kind of go towards this like. Well, we'll just put it this way: as fiat currency continues to fail, it's not an if, it's a when. When fiat currency continues to keep going downhill and eventually fails, these entities are going to do everything in their power to protect themselves and to keep people from using alternative systems. And so I think that they're going to crack down on privacy, they're going to crack down on money movement, they're going to crack down on all these things. So it leads to, I've got 2 more questions for you, and if you've got some time, I may let a couple people up to ask questions if they want to, unless you're strapped for time, JP.
Yes, fine. On your question on fiat currency files, we actually don't need Bitcoin if we just had a well-run fiat currency. Like the Swiss franc is an example of a really well-run fiat currency. But however, the Swiss franc can't just be the Swiss franc because the US poked their fingers at it about 12 years ago, 15 years ago, with the Swiss banks' privacy laws. And then they show the whole world, including if you go to Switzerland these days and you talk to people about what happened 15 years ago, everyone is still shocked that the Swiss banking system, which stood on its own for hundreds of years, and everyone thought was extremely high integrity and nobody ever could touch it. And if you have a Swiss bank account, you're good. But then US regulators came in and poked at the system and forced the Switzerland government to do things against the will of the people. Everyone is still shocked from that because it means the world is definitely not as it seems, and an extremely old and well-run financial system can be poked at and moved around and leveraged by the US regulators. So getting back to the US, if the US dollar was better run, we wouldn't need Bitcoin. I mean, the U.S. Constitution is one of the most important documents in the world. It has given us modern freedom, and nobody should forget that. The U.S. Constitution should be protected at all costs because it defines what freedom is going to the future. The last 4 years, the 8 years, to be honest, has really threatened people's understanding of that document, and that's why it's really necessary that we return to the basics. The US has to return to its basics. I think it's the pendulum is swinging, and we will see that for the next 4 years. The US has to go back to basics. But if the US had a better run financial system that didn't weaponize its dollar around the world and use it to assert a very aggressive foreign policy, then we should be using US dollars, and like all the fiat currencies go in contagion with each other. So the US dollar is nice and strong and well run, then the Aussie dollar will be nice and strong and well run. But because the US dollar is weaponized and not well run, and it's controlled by insiders and they're all corrupt and blah blah blah, as a result, all the world's fiat currencies in the world can't take that example, and they just can't really be better than that. So they all suck, and that's why Bitcoin is an idea. It's almost like, well, you guys can't do it, so we're going to try and solve it, and it's going to be ugly and it's going to be rudimentary, but the most important thing is it's going to be decentralized, and that's Bitcoin, because like these fiat currencies are massively controlled, and they're just arbitrarily pushed and poked around by insiders. So Bitcoin is it's just a very ugly solution. I mean, there's no other way you can look at Bitcoin and go, that's an elegant solution. It's just ugly. Everything about it is ugly. But it works. That's the most important thing. It's ugly, but it works. And it has really strong integrity around its monetary policy and the degree and speed at which things change, and its distribution and its decentralization. So therefore, you can trust your purchasing power to be stored across time and space with Bitcoin that you could not do with US dollar or gold, but you can do with Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is almost like it's like the ugly duckling that exists because nothing else exists in that regard. So that was your kind of comment about fiat currencies. But yeah, getting back to your question.
Sure. And I'll make a comment real quick. See, I take the opposite end of the approach on like Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin is, and it solves a problem that humans have faced for thousands of years, like the double spend issue and self custody. So I view it as like a beautiful new solution where ideas are very difficult to kill once they get out there. But as far as the monetary policy, I mean, I agree. Like, ideally, you would want your government to protect your money is property, and so you would want your government to protect your property. And so, you want you would trust that they wouldn't abuse it. The reason why I see Bitcoin as beautiful is because the temptation of power when something gets too large to print money endlessly and keep it backed by gold. Even when we were backed by gold, we still had the double spend problem. I mean, that's why like even Franklin Roosevelt revalued gold. The dollar to gold from 20 to 30 something dollars an ounce during the Depression is because they were actually denominating more dollars to gold. But regardless, we're all on the same page with cryptocurrency. And Bitcoin does one thing really well, and that's not change and store value. And there's others out there. I mean, there's THORChain, there's even stable coins, there's Caspa, there's Multiverse X. Take your pick on different a different niche that these things are trying to fill. And one of the things that I like about Rune or THORChain is you guys are bridging the gap on all of these different networks, because I think the future is multi-chain. And don't let the laser eyes fool you. I'm not a maxi. I think Bitcoin's the best form of money, but I think that it's necessary that we have different forms of money, just like Swiss franc, Aussie dollars, U.S. dollars, Canadian dollars, pesos. So the future is going to be that way. And so I'll lead it to my next question on that is, and obviously, these technologies are, they're works in progress, right? They're always constantly developing. They're always constantly finding bugs and changing. Just like the Samurai Wallet guys, or just like any like the Tornado Cash guys, how resilient is THORChain? Are you guys able to operate effectively if somebody were to get in trouble? If a three-letter agency decided they wanted to do something, are you guys resilient enough to keep on operating?
So you brought us some examples there. So actually, let's look at that. So Tornado Cash developer deployed the contracts, ran the interface. By the way, these guys should not be in jail, and they should not be hauled in at all. However, just look at the pathway that resulted in where that kind of situation is. So deployed the contracts, ran the front end, did an airdrop, which and benefited financially from that drop. And the same thing with Uniswap as well. Deployed the contracts, ran the front end, ran marketed extensively, and benefit financially. So there's like as it's like a vertically integrated product. So the same team or person did every part of the stack. The back end, which is the contract, the middleware, which is like the integration with the contract, the front end, which was the interface, and finally they got the financial layer, which they control, like the treasury. So that's THORChain, that's Wasabi, that's also Uniswap. That's why Uniswap's got a Wells notice right now. They ran a vertically integrated product, whereas THORChain did everything differently. So the whole project was to split up the back end, the middleware, and the front end, and the treasury, and even the socials and Twitter, and just blast it out into the community. And that's where it is today. Obviously, day one of 8 years ago, it was like, birth central in a centralized way, but we very quickly pushed it out to the community. THORSwap, which was previously BepSwap, they were a team member, and I did help them write the first version. But within the first month, we were kicking them out and pushing. And in the first year, we pushed them over to like THORSwap and launch their own token and be self-sufficient. So the main front end for THORChain is a completely separate team and direction of vision, and has been for multiple sort of years. The middleware layer, Midgard, is also was a community-led push. So the front end is all pushed out. In fact, there is no protocol, there's no front end that THORChain runs today, zero, and has been for years. Asgardex is a community-run desktop app. THORSwap, Shapeshift, and that's why we built affiliate fees. Is we wanted the front ends that wrap THORChain to be self-sustaining the revenue and to make money. And we all pushed them to aggressively launch tokens, because then they can have their own treasury and community. So that's why. So there's no front end today that's managed by the team or 9Rubs or anything like that. Second thing, the middleware is not even managed by a single team. So like the Midgard is maintained by community developers and run by nodes. And finally, the nodes themselves are anonymous with low delegation. There's no SSL certificates. There's no like logo that says, "Hey, this is a node." Because back in 2018, I was looking at the way Cosmos was running, Atom Hub, and there were just logos and centralization and delegated proof of stake and blah blah blah. I'm like, no, this is not the future of liquidity. You need your nodes anon. You need it to be high churn. You need to have a system of kicking out old nodes and bringing new nodes. So the nodes run the protocol, but they get kicked out every 3 days. So they actually only run the protocol for 3 days before it's more than that, but they get kicked out. There's a churn, right? So that's really important, because if a regulator approaches a node and says, "Hey," well, let's take a step back. If a regulator approaches THORChain and goes, "Hey, we need you to add KYC," or are they going to come to 9Realms and say, "Hey, add KYC," because 9Realms immediately go, "Well, you don't run the protocol. You're going to have to add an ADR or submit a pull request into the GitHub, and you're going to have to convince nodes to run your software." And then the regulators are like, "Well, we don't want to do that. Give me the addresses of the nodes." And 9Realms were like, "Well, we don't know the address of the nodes. They're all anonymous," which is true. And so the regulator will try and they'll try and go to the nodes and say, "Hey, can you add this KYC software?" And then if they can find a node, that node should just leave the system, because they just run the protocol for 3 days. They have no unilateral view on what the protocol does, because the node just has to follow the code of the state machine. So you can't. There's no vector there. You can't force 9Realms to make a pull request. You can't force the nodes to run that pull request if they don't want to run it. And if the nodes are being oppressed, they should just leave the system, move the nodes to a different jurisdiction, like, I don't know, Argentina, and then churn back in. And then the protocol's back to running again. And if you go to the interfaces, of which is now like 30 of them, and you'll have to get every single interface to add the same rule. And that's already what we happened. So the interfaces, the smaller interfaces that are not jurisdictionally based and can be a bit more open in what they can do, are the lifeblood of THORChain. That's why we love the small new interfaces, because when the big interfaces get too big, they'll get hit with a lot of attention, and they'll have to add things like chain analysis and tracking and whatnot. Whereas the small interfaces don't have that obligation, because they're small and only niche users use them. So they're like the small interfaces are backing up the big interfaces. The big interfaces would trip up. So from my and yeah. So and lastly, the treasury is we just pay open source developers, and by the way, the treasury is about to get modularized and put into the protocol itself, and not going to be any we anymore. It's going to be node operators deciding who gets paid every 3 months, and that's happening in the next few months. So if you go to the protocol and want to shut it down, I personally think there's no real avenue. I mean, people say, hey, the three-letter agencies can tell Amazon to like turn off all these nodes, but give me an example yet where that's happened. The regulator is not going to force a private company to shut down. I mean, if that were to happen, then they would have got Amazon to have shut down the Onion Network nodes, or any of the troublesome protocols that they don't like. But they've never asked that. By the way, I've always maintained, and so does most people in the community, that by the way, the three-letter agencies are deep into the Onion network. They run most of Tor nodes. I hope you guys realize that, because they can do temporal analysis on packets of data and work out who's doing what. And it's free to run a Tor node. And it's actually not, it's like $200 a month or less than to run a Tor node. So if you were a three-letter agencies, why wouldn't you spool up 5,000 Tor nodes? Because if you run 5,000 Tor nodes, you just do temporal analysis. You can work out the direction of the packets. You can sniff them. You will know who's using what. And by the way, this happens. I'm not talking like it could happen. I'm saying it literally happens today. The three-letter agencies run most of the Tor network. That's why a decentralized network that has economics is important, because Tor is vulnerable to takeover in that sense. Now, but so the three-letter agencies love Tor actually, because they can see exactly where the packs of data are going. So we've always maintained that because you can see on-chain everything that's going in and out of the THORChain state machine, which you don't get with like a private Mongolian crypto exchange that needs like basically a warrant to peek in and see what's going on those exchanges and those users. With THORChain, you literally just pull up Midgard, you can see the ETH went in there, then it got sold to there, and that's the outgoing transaction. There's no effort by THORChain to obfuscate any part of the swap. So the whole machine is actually a giant honeypot for anyone in the world, and it's useful in that sense. You don't need to subpoena THORChain. The data's all just there. So I actually think three-letter agencies should be approaching THORChain, and with the idea that it shows everything out in the open, and it's actually necessary, because if you swap the THORChain from Bitcoin to ETH, you now can build a giant cross-chain address graph. By the way, anyone can do this, and it's called Midgard, and it's already done. Midgard's needed for interfaces to monitor everything. So it's actually a useful product for everyone, including the FBI. That's my answer.
Awesome. And this is my final question for myself. Two-parter. Are there any other native L1 assets that are coming in the future to THORChain? And the second part is, from the perspective, I'm a pleb. I found this space very interesting. I want to buy some Rune. What all can I do with it, or what can I do to get involved with the ecosystem and play around? What are my options, and where are some places that I can go to mess with the ecosystem and try it out?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, just jump on. I mean, there's so many interfaces you can play around with, like THORSwap for swaps and savers and Lens for lending. Yeah, I mean, THORChain as a protocol, its primary user is not end users. Its primary user is actually developers. We built a product for developers. We haven't built a product for users. We let out the interfaces of THORChain, like THORSwap and blah, and Shapeshift and Trust Wallet. They have the users. They've got the user experience to solve. Go ahead and use it. On this, I'm building Voltisig. By the way, Voltisig we took THORChain's TSS, and which is magic. And it, like I said, back in 2018, I was looking at multisig. They all suck. By the way, they still do suck. And there's no like retail app that uses threshold signatures. So when I was setting up a fund, a new crypto fund end of last year, I was setting up multi-sigs for Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, THORChain. The whole user experience was just did my head in. And I thought to myself, hey, why don't I just take THORChain's TSS, jam it into a wallet app, and now suddenly you have two-factor for your crypto. Like you log into your Gmail with two-factor, you log in even to your Discord with a two-factor, right? You need two things from two devices, basically. So, and I thought, hang on a minute, we have all this single sig, including hardware, and that's like single sig is too dangerous to use when you're holding large amounts of money, but multi-sig is just terrible user experience. So why don't I build multi-sig? So that's what multi-sig is. I encourage you to go check it out. Multi-sig, there's a Discord there, jump in. We're about to launch it for iOS and Android, but we basically just took TSS and made it work for the mobile environment. So you can, there's Solana, THORChain, Bitcoin, Ethereum, like there's like 30 different chains in there supported. Anything that Trust Wallet can support, we can support in multi-sig. But it's the next step in wallets because it's basically two-factor. The vault shares, so the vault shares do not carry funds. The vault shares are not linked on-chain to the final vault. The final vault is fully DeFi compatible. It looks like an EOA. It's fully cross-chain compatible. It can do everything. Multi-sig is 100% the next evolution of wallets. Everything will move away from single sig, and multi-sig will just get skipped because it sucked. So everyone's going to threshold signatures, and multi-sig will be the first app that does it. So download it now, check it out. There'll be an airdrop in 12 months. So get into it. And definitely ask me more questions about multi-sig if you want. The second part of your question, well, actually the first part is the THORChain adding another L1? And the answer is yes, Solana is coming. Solana has some difficult problems to solve, but it'll get there inside next 3 to 6 months. And then probably when after we add Solana, we'll add a whole bunch of L2s as well in a more in a reduced security stance. So basically, we'll be open to adding more L2s without the need for nodes to run every single full node for those chains because those chains are not even decentralized. So there's no point in, we'll have a better solution for adding L2s. So I hope that answers your question.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. And I love to see development. I really, I really need to expose I need to get bigger exposure to Rune. I think that Rune's a long-term player in the market. And I really like what you guys are doing. And I like that you stand on your principles and you are integrating privacy, you are integrating security, and you're not. The striking thing about the conversation is you're not just a hype guy, right? You're like, hey, these were the flaws, these are the things that we had to work through, these are the current issues. It's not all just blowing smoke up somebody's ass. You're being honest about what you need to work on, what's coming, the struggles that you've had in the past, and I commend the honesty, and we need more of that in the space. JP, do you have any time to take any questions, or is your time strapped?
Yeah, let's do a couple questions.
Okay. Anybody who wants to come up and ask a question and ask JP, you're more than welcome to send a request. Raise your hand, please. And if you insult my guests or you're rude to my guests at all, I will kick your ass. We don't tolerate that in the space. But disagreements or questions are welcome. You know how it is. I mean, just be cordial adults. So yeah, I'll take anybody who wants to come up and ask a question. I know. The Joker, exclamation mark. I know you came up, so you got anything? No, or maybe he's just up here for the algorithm. Who knows? Coyote.
Yeah, JP Thor, thank you for coming up. A long time, rune holder since about 2019. Through all the FTX debacle, I sold a lot of stuff, but I held on to my rune just because the I didn't know that much. I'd just been exposed to the memes of it. You said during your journey with Rune at 3 separate times, the whole project was kind of on the brink of collapse, and you decided to push through. I've met a lot of project founders that will hop from project to project. If something's about to collapse, they're like, okay, I'll learn my lesson and move on. My question is one about resilience. Why did you decide to buckle down and actually push through and stick with this project? Was it necessity? Was it trust in the community or in the tech? Was it stubbornness? Reflecting back on it, what got you through those moments?
Yeah, sure. So the first time was in September 2018 when I realized the project was in the wrong direction with the wrong tech stack with the wrong team. And Ethereum was blowing down, and the our treasury I'd raised 600 grand at the time to build it was and it was denominated in ETH, was really low, and I had to refund my investors and whatnot, and the project got put on pause. And then I went to Croatia, and that's when I saw Hayden launching Uniswap, and I said, "Hey, this is exactly what's needed because it's like what I've been building, but it's just for EVM chains and not for cross chain." So I had this renewed sense of energy that someone had to build it for cross chain, and it was the correct direction. So that got me into 2019. And then, but that was very much it needed to happen. Someone needs to build cross chain liquidity pools, but I wasn't in no position in 2019 without the funds or the people involved to pull it off. So I kind of just bid my time, waiting until I met the right people, and that's when I met Chad, and he gave me. So we won that hackathon in Berlin together. We literally just wrote THORChain out in a weekend and pitched it, and we won it. And Chad and I worked really well together. So with that bit of energy, I thought, hey, let's reattempt this. And so I went to the market, raised a whole bunch more money, flew back to Melbourne, hired a bunch of team members, and off we went. And so that crossed the chasm there. So I thought we need to build this because the world needs to have this. And about 6 months later, with the mainnet launch, and it was the amount of problems we had to solve to get single chain and the first testnet out. Again, it was and the markets in 2019 were just like at the bottom again. Some crazy stuff happening. We had Roger Ver trying to fork Bitcoin and wild. Anyway, and like the project itself had been listed on BitMax, and it was like sub 1 cent and blah blah blah. Anyway, it was just like we just had to grit our teeth and go, no, we have to build this. And obviously the third time was when it almost failed, was post hacks, where it's just the whole protocol was dealt a massive kick in the guts, and like everyone it was just chaos everywhere. In every direction you looked was chaos. But we had to push through. We had to wake up every day and solve those problems, because we realized there was no alternative. There was no other liquidity solution for cross chain. We had come so far. You had so far to go, but it was necessary, and it had to get built. So the main thing that gives you the attitude to pull through in moments like that is to have a multi-year horizon. So don't think 5 days or 5 months in the future. You've got to think 5 to 10 years. So very early on, my vision for THORChain was this kind of 10-year vision of being this a centralized exchange replacement. So when you cop some blows day to day, you settle back to your vision, which is a 10-year vision, and you go, look, it's okay. I will solve the problems. I will, because the vision is really important. So it's that North Star that you look to, and you go, look, today's going to be rough. I gotta wake up. I'm going to solve some hardcore problems and deal with some hardcore chaos. But I'm still looking at my North Star, which is 10 years into the future, and that's where I'm walking to. So that you've got to have a thesis. You've got to have a multi-decade conviction. Just like holding Bitcoin. Do not hold Bitcoin unless you can independently come to a conclusion why it's a good thing to hold Bitcoin over 10 years. So, and if you build a thesis like that, you don't care about the day-to-day volatility. You know that Bitcoin's going to be worth $1 million plus in 10 years' time, more than that. So the volatility data doesn't matter to you, but it's really important. You've got to build independently yourself a really strong thesis that spans more than 5 years, and preferably up to 10 years. And that becomes your North Star for everything that you do. So yeah, that's my little pointers there.
Wow. It's incredible, and I think you're living it out with THORChain. I mean, this has been a long-term project. What you said, 2016 was the start. Are we looking at 8 years on THORChain?
Yeah. So I mean, 2017.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah. It's been a long term to have that vision of building liquidity. But even to this day, So, and the parallel here is why I hold Bitcoin. So even to this day, and I first met Bitcoin in 2013, my thesis for holding Bitcoin is the same, and it's just stronger, right? And so with THORChain, my thesis for building THORChain, 7, 8 years today is still the same, and it's just stronger, right? So because I've carried those theses and there's that conviction over such a long period of time, you cannot shake me on it. Right? It has to happen, and it will happen. So every day when I wake up and I hold Bitcoin to store my wealth, my time over time and space, and I want to build THORChain to solve the cross-chain liquidity problem is the same, and it's unwavering. And then you can get through anything.
I love that. That's I'll toss since we don't have anybody. Of course, most of the guys in the audience got the green ring around their profiles, so they're all THORChain guys in general. So they probably been with you for almost every space that you've done. I talked to Cal. Cal said you were on fire, man. He said you were back to back to back to back interviews and spaces and different things. So hats off to you. I'm glad you're busy. I'm gonna toss one final question to you, and I'll end it. Usually, I can't get people to stop, so you've got a very attentive audience. My final question is, give us your time frame. Obviously, it's like impossible to predict the future completely. What's your 3, 5, and possible longer goals? Being in the project, where would you like to see it go? What would you like to see done in the future, other than just other layer one integrations? Like, I mean, obviously, you don't want to give too much alpha on secret things you're working on, but as much as you can give. What are your long term goals personally and for the project?
Yeah, sure. So THORChain is in a really good spot right now. We've just come out of a quarter of instability, just more edge cases to deal with. We've got an upcoming hard fork to get through. But once we've cleared a bit of that tech debt, then we want to launch some pretty cool features over the back half of this year. Rune pool, in my opinion, is the top priority because we have to ensure that before the top of this bull market, which is probably in 12 to 18 months, is Rune's liquidity is as deep as possible. When Rune is extremely deep in liquidity, you have less volatility. And by the volatility is, if you think about an envelope, like, I'm a pilot and an engineer, everything exists in an envelope. And like the way that a plane flies is in a safety envelope. And you don't want to really get up to the edge of an envelope. You'd rather just sit in the middle, like cruise speed, flight level 300 with the engines at 80% power. That's like right in your middle of the envelope. It's a very safe spot for the aircraft. You can do that for like 14 hours straight if it's like your 777. And like a helicopter just loves flying around at 60, 70 knots, engines at 60% power, 2,000 feet. That's an example. It's like right in the middle of the envelope. It's very stable. Nothing can change. You can fly that for 6 hours. But when you explore the edge of the envelope, like in the hovering regime or the high altitude regime or the high power regime or the low power regime, then that thing's going to start to go wrong. So THORChain as a protocol, as a system, needs to sit in the middle of its envelope and not touch the edges. And when it starts touching the edges, that's when the safety levers need to come in and save it, right? Or the community need to come in and pause it, or the devs need to roll out a feature to manage that part of the envelope. So we just want THORChain to live in the middle of its envelope and it'll be just fine. And what's really important for that is as much liquidity as possible, because when Rune liquidity is really low or not high, it means the price of Rune will explore the envelope. And if the price of Rune, whether up or down, is exploring the envelope, things could go, or will just become really volatile and things could be exposed. So that's why Rune liquidity is critical for solving, and we need as much Rune liquidity as possible. But by solving Rune liquidity, we actually solve node income. So right now, nodes are earning less than LPs because the user experience for providing liquidity sucks. So if we just solve the user experience for providing liquidity, then people will add a lot more liquidity, and then the incentive pension will come back and pay the nodes a lot more. And when the nodes are getting paid more, they'll beef up the security. They'll go out and buy more Rune. They'll roll out more nodes. And example of this, the node count has kind of been stagnated around 100 for the last 2 years because we haven't been able to add in more additional node operators because the income's low. So in my opinion, in my strong opinion, solve the experience of liquidity, get more liquidity out of it, send the pendulum, switch strength the nodes get paid more, the security the system goes up, we have more nodes joining the system, and then that creates a virtuous cycle to lead THORChain up to $100 billion. The second thing is THORChain needs to offer centralized exchange parity. There should be no reason to go to a centralized exchange after this. So that's what it may not be. Perps, limit orders, etc. We're pretty confident they could be added this year. So certainly limit orders. They will get added for sure. Maybe next year, maybe the following year. But they must get added for THORChain to walk its way up and replace centralized exchanges. So in this cycle, in 12 to 18 months from now, where could THORChain be? Certainly well on the way to the $100 billion meme that I'm trying to create. And the reason why it's $100 billion is because Coinbase and Binance both have hit $100 billion. So if centralized exchanges can do it, surely THORChain can do it. Right, that's the meme there. But also THORChain should do it. So it may not happen this cycle. 100 billion is pretty crazy, but I think it would definitely happen next cycle, in the 2029 cycle. So in my opinion, build the features out to 2027. The market's going to implode in 2026, 2027, and then there's going to be a run up to 2029, and then that's when THORChain will hit 100 billion. So yeah, that's another 4 or 5 years. So that's the roadmap. What do you reckon?
Awesome. That was a great explanation. I've got my crypto brother and friend Adam Stokes he's Australian military, and he talked about he gave actually the same kind of analogies with fighter pilot planes as well. So it just kind of rung a bell with me. I've heard him talk about very similar things. Also, like you don't want a plane to gain too much velocity too quickly, or you'll starve the engine of fuel. So I just it all comes full circle. You guys are very principled. Anybody who's listening today, I mean, obviously, I'm sure you follow JP. The official THORChain page is actually in the comment. They're in the listener section. I see them, and then familiar Cal. Give him a follow as well. He's the one that kind of led me on to reaching out to JP. We really, really appreciate, given his early time. We really appreciate his time today and his willingness to come out and talk. I'm sure you've done this a million times, and you just continue to rattle off information. We appreciate the transparency and the honesty. And I always leave the space with the same comment. And THORChain, THORChain's going to really, really reiterate this point today. If you have your crypto on an exchange, get the crypto off the exchange. Don't leave your money on the exchange. If it's not in your possession, it's not yours. Put it on a hardware wallet. Put it on a software wallet. Use the exchanges as minimal as possible. On-ramp your crypto and then take it off and put it into your possession, for God's sake. You don't know how many times I've talked to people 5, 10 years in crypto. They lose their money when an FTX happens. They lose their money to a hack, a Mt. Gox, whatever. If it's not your keys, it's not your crypto. Get it off the exchange. And use THORSwap. Check it out. Use it. Learn how it works. Learn how to use cross-chain swaps. Learn how to borrow and lend. By the way, you don't pay taxes in most Western countries on debt, so you can collateralize your Bitcoin. It's the most pristine collateral in the world. JP, any final comments, man?
Totally agree. And let's build the future we want to see. Get out there.
Amen to that, guys. Give these guys a follow. And until next time, we appreciate you coming out. Thank you, man. Y'all have a good one.
Great. See ya. Bye.
Bye.